When George Strait was 73 years old, he finally talked about his friend Toby Keith. George Strait was born as George Harvey Strait Sr. on May 18, 1952, in a small Texas town called Poteet, and he grew up in another nearby town called Pierrot. Strait grew up around the pretty but tough Texas countryside and learned the ways of small town life. These early days would help shape who he was and what his music sounded like. His family believed in old traditions and working hard, so Strait learned to love classic country music stars like Hank Williams, Merle Haggard, and George Jones. You could hear these singers' influence in his own honest and emotional music later on. After finishing high school, Strait went to college for a little bit before joining the United States Army, where he did a good job and was sent to Hawaii. While he was in the Army, he found out he loved performing and joined an Army band called Rambling Country. This experience helped him get better at being on stage, and it also taught him to be disciplined and never give up things that would help him a lot in the tough world of country music. When he finished serving in the Army, Strait went back to Texas and went back to school at Southwest Texas State University, which is now called Texas State University in San Marcos. There he got a degree in farming, which showed how much he still loved the land and country life. In 1981, Strait's music career took a huge step forward when he put out his first song called Unwound, which quickly became popular on the country music charts and showed everyone that a new traditional country voice had arrived at a time when country music was becoming more like pop music. His first album, called Strait Country, was the start of a long and famous career where he stayed loyal to the roots of country music. Over the next many years, Strait would make more than 30 albums, and each one had his special style of twangy singing, heartfelt words, and simple but emotionally powerful music. Songs like Amarillo by Morning, The Chair, Oceanfront Property, Carrying Your Love With Me, and I Cross My Heart became not just hits but songs that Americans would love forever. Strait's career successes are absolutely legendary. He holds the record for having the most #1 songs of any artist in any type of music, with 60 #1 hits on the Billboard country charts. This shows how consistently good he was and how much people loved him. He has sold more than 100 million records all around the world, won multiple Grammy Awards, and was named CMA Entertainer of the Year several times. In 2006, he was put into the Country Music Hall of Fame, which proved he was a timeless icon. Even though he was hugely successful, Strait stayed really humble and down to earth, and he famously avoided the Hollywood-style life that often comes with being a superstar. He rarely talked to reporters, stayed out of gossip magazines, and instead let his music do the talking, which is a rare and admirable thing in today's entertainment world. Besides his music success, Strait has been recognized with countless awards and honors throughout his career. He won multiple Country Music Association (CMA) and Academy of Country Music (ACM) awards many times, including special titles like Entertainer of the Year and Male Vocalist of the Year. In 2006, he was put into the Country Music Hall of Fame, which was a perfect tribute to a man who had already made a permanent mark on country music. In 2013, he started his goodbye tour called The Cowboy Rides Away, which ended with a record-breaking final concert in Arlington, Texas, where over 100,000 fans came to watch, proving his place as a giant among live performers. In 2014, Strait finished his final national tour, The Cowboy Rides Away Tour, with a record-breaking farewell concert at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas, where over 104,000 fans came together to honor him, making it the largest indoor concert in North American history. Even though it was supposed to be his retirement from touring all the time, Strait continues to perform some shows and stays involved in the country music world, especially through regular shows in Las Vegas and Texas. His work after touring also includes charity work and helping young artists as he continues to be a bridge between different generations. George Strait's impact on country music cannot be measured. He not only kept the genre's traditional roots alive, but also updated them just enough to keep them fresh, relevant, and widely loved. Through it all, he stayed true to himself, ignoring trends, sticking to a pure country sound, and never giving up his values or musical honesty. His influence can be heard in the work of countless modern country stars, from Garth Brooks and Alan Jackson to Chris Stapleton and Cody Johnson. In December 1971, George Strait took a bold and very personal step that would create the foundation of his lifelong love story. He ran away to Mexico to marry his high school girlfriend Norma Voss. Their relationship had grown during their teenage years in Peale, Texas, and despite the challenges that often come with young love, George and Norma shared a rare, lasting bond. The couple's decision to marry privately across the border showed both their independent spirit and their desire to commit to each other on their own terms without big celebrations or interference. That quiet, honest beginning set the tone for a marriage that would last more than 50 years, which is rare in both country music and the entertainment world in general. Over the years, George Strait often said Norma was the steady, grounding person in his life, someone who stood by him through every success and every hardship, helping him handle the pressures of fame with grace and humility. Their family life began soon after their marriage with the birth of their first child, a daughter named Jennifer Lynn Strait, on October 6, 1972. Jennifer was the pride and joy of the Strait household, a bright, spirited young girl who brought happiness and laughter into their lives. As George's career in country music began to pick up speed in the early 1980s, he still made being a devoted father his priority. He often talked about how much he loved being at home with Jennifer and Norma, finding balance between his growing fame and his responsibilities as a family man. Jennifer's presence during those important early years added a sense of normalcy to their lives. Even as George changed from a young singer to a major recording artist, their family grew again nearly 10 years later when George and Norma welcomed their second child, a son named George Harvey Strait Jr. On May 14, 1981, lovingly called Bubba, he would become not only George's only son, but also a close friend and kindred spirit. Growing up in the Strait household, Bubba was raised with strong values, hard work, respect, humility, and a love for traditional Texas culture. While his father was a megastar in the country music world, Bubba chose a path that matched more with the rugged, authentic roots of Texas, the world of rodeo. He eventually went to Texas A&M University, a school rich in tradition and pride, and earned his degree while also getting involved in competitive rodeo. Bubba became a team roper in the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association (PRCA), where he earned respect in his own right, not just as George Strait's son, but as a skilled and disciplined cowboy. Sadly, the Strait family's journey was forever changed on June 25, 1986, when 13-year-old Jennifer was killed in a car accident in San Marcos, Texas. The loss was devastating and deeply personal, shaking the entire family to its core. George, known for usually being quiet and private, pulled back even more from the spotlight after the tragedy. He stopped talking to reporters for many years, choosing instead to deal with his grief privately. In memory of their beloved daughter, George and Norma started the Jennifer Lynn Strait Foundation, a charity organization devoted to helping children in need. Based in the San Antonio area, the foundation continues to give money to children's charities, including organizations focused on education, health, and the arts. It stands as a powerful and lasting tribute to Jennifer's life, a way for the Straits to turn their pain into purpose, giving back to the community and honoring the joy their daughter brought to the world. As the years went on, George took great pride in watching Bubba grow into a talented and well-rounded young man. In 2006, Strait had a proud and emotional moment when he was able to watch his son compete at the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, an event that holds special meaning in Texas culture. Just before going on stage himself to perform for a huge audience of fans, George sat quietly in the stands, beaming with pride as Bubba took his turn in the arena. That image of a country music legend watching his son uphold Texas traditions in the rodeo showed the deep family values that run through every part of George Strait's life. It was not just about fame, music, or awards. For George, life was always about faith, family, and staying true to his roots. At the age of 73, George Strait, widely known as the King of Country, has spent decades letting his music speak louder than his words. Respected for his traditional sound and dignified public image, Strait has rarely been one to get involved in public commentary or industry drama. However, in a rare and heartfelt moment, he recently opened up about fellow country music icon Toby Keith, a man whose legacy, like Strait's, left a lasting mark on the genre. Strait, known for his quiet and humble personality, spoke with unusual openness, sharing his thoughts not just on Keith's music, but on the man himself. George Strait remembered the early days when Toby Keith burst onto the country music scene in the 1990s with bold energy, unapologetic lyrics, and a powerful, deep voice that stood out among Nashville's rising stars. Strait admitted that while their musical styles were quite different, Keith often leaned toward rock, mixed country anthems, while Strait stayed loyal to a more traditional sound. The two shared a deep respect for the roots of country music and its storytelling tradition. Strait praised Keith's songwriting, pointing out his talent for capturing patriotic themes, working class struggles, and emotional honesty in a way that connected with millions. He mentioned how songs like Courtesy of the Red, White, and Blue and American Soldier started national conversations, adding that Keith's boldness gave voice to feelings many Americans felt deeply. But Strait's words went far beyond professional praise. He spoke warmly about Keith as a person, gracious, funny, and incredibly tough. Strait thought back on their personal meetings backstage at award shows and charity events, where Keith was always generous with his time and supportive of fellow artists. He especially admired Keith's work ethic and his unwavering devotion to his fans, even when facing personal health struggles in his later years. Strait described how Keith's determination during his battle with stomach cancer had inspired not only fans, but also peers within the country music world. Toby's grit was something else, Strait said. He didn't want pity. He wanted to keep doing what he loved, writing songs, getting on stage, and making people feel something. That takes a rare kind of heart. Strait also recognized the impact Toby Keith had on the evolution of country music. While the two represented different eras and approaches, Strait believed Keith's contributions were vital to keeping the genre dynamic and relevant. Toby brought in a whole new wave of listeners. He shook things up, and that's important, Strait remarked. Country music's got room for all of us. Cowboys, rebels, poets, and patriots. Thinking about Toby Keith's legacy, Strait recognized the powerful mark Keith left on country music through his bold personality, gritty songwriting, and unapologetic patriotism. Toby was one of a kind, Strait said. He had that fire, that edge. He brought something different to the table, and you felt it every time he walked on stage or sang one of his songs. This rare public statement from someone as famously quiet as George Strait carried significant weight, especially considering Keith's recent health struggles and the outpouring of tributes following his death. Strait went on to remember moments the two artists had crossed paths over the years at award shows, charity events, and behind the scenes of the industry they both helped shape. While they may not have shared the stage often, Strait emphasized a deep professional respect for Keith's approach to music and life. "We didn't hang out in the same circles all the time," Strait admitted. "But I always admired how Toby did things on his own terms. He wasn't afraid to speak his mind, and that takes guts in this business." What struck many fans the most was the emotion in Strait's voice as he spoke. He seemed not only to be honoring a peer, but also thinking about the passage of time and how fragile life is, something that becomes more meaningful with age. You get to a point, Strait said quietly, where you start looking back a lot more than you look ahead. And when you look back, You realize how important it is to say what's on your heart while you still can. As George Strait opened up, there was a clear sense of admiration in his voice, a recognition from one legend to another. At 73, with more than 60 #1 hits and a legacy secured in the records of American music history, Strait's words carried the weight of experience and sincerity. In speaking up about Toby Keith, he didn't just pay tribute to a fellow artist. He honored a brother in song, a fellow Texan, and a man who, like himself, had never backed down from being exactly who he was. In the end, Strait's tribute was more than a reflection. It was a moment of unity, of one icon tipping his hat to another, and reminding us all that country music is more than just fame or chart-topping hits. It's about integrity, heart, and the stories we leave behind. And in that sense, both George Strait and Toby Keith will forever ride high in the saddle of American music lore.